Hello, I'm Conor Meade, and I'm here today at the 2015 Canadian Science Policy Conference. And joining me today is Dr. Wendell Wallach, who is a visiting Fulbright scholar at the University of Ottawa, visiting from Yale, and also a senior advisor at the Hastings Center, and also the author of the recent release, A Dangerous Master. So Dr. Wallach, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
So why don't we start by telling me a little bit about you, your work, and what the focus of your career has been.
Okay. Well, my work is largely focused upon the ethics and societal impact of emerging technologies, with a focus now upon public policy oversight, ways to engineer and develop different mechanisms to manage really what can go wrong or what societal impacts might be negative. So that's where my focus is, but it's about as transdisciplinary as you can get. I'm best known, though, for the two books I've written, Moral Machines, Teaching Robots Right from Wrong, which I wrote together with the philosopher Colin Allen from Indiana University. And that looks at the prospects for implementing moral decision-making, sensitivity to moral considerations in artificial intelligence and in robotics in general. And now this more recent book, A Dangerous Master, How to Keep Technology from Slipping Beyond Our Control. And that really is as much a primer about the emerging technologies, because I think most people don't even understand what geoengineering or nanotech or synthetic biology are. But it's also about policy recommendations about engineering our way around certain challenges that will arise. So it's a little bit of the science, a little bit of the history, a little bit of the benefits, but I focus most explicitly on risks and societal impacts and how we'll manage those.
Absolutely. Well, you're in very good company in being concerned about the potential impact of transformative new technology. Some very big names like Stephen Hawking, Bill Gates, and Elon Musk have recently come out and expressed serious interest in the topic. And I understand that
they focus most specifically on artificial intelligence and fears about more speculative possibilities. When artificial intelligence reaches, or whether it will reach, human intelligence and then an intelligence explosion far exceed it, I call myself a friendly skeptic. So I'm friendly to the can-do engineering spirit that says remarkable things lie in our future. I'm deeply skeptical that we have the science to realize the kinds of more speculative possibilities that they are talking about. But the good side of that is it has gotten a lot of people within the field of artificial intelligence looking at how we might manage or control systems or get them to be sensitive to human values and have their actions aligned with human values. And Elon Musk even gave $10 million, which has been distributed in a series of different grants to people addressing various aspects of that. So he gave this $10 million. They had more than 300 applicants for grants, and they finally gave 37 grants.
Excellent. And I understand you've received one of those grants.
So I received one of those grants for a project called Control and Responsible Innovation in the Development of Autonomous Machines. And what I came to realize very quickly is everybody's living in their own silos and they have absolutely no idea what other people are thinking about. So the artificial intelligence folks started talking about values and alignment without having any idea that there was a whole community of people who for the past decade have been looking at implementing moral decision-making faculties in computers and robots. So what my grant is really is a silo-busting grant, where I'm bringing together the leaders in all of these different facets, from resilience engineering to societal impact of technologies that we have today, and the artificial intelligence researchers and the robotics researchers. I'm bringing them together and seeing if we can map out comprehensive oversight and governance of the development of robotics. Not just in the oversight, but also in what scientific pathways and how do you get the social scientists working together with the physical scientists or the roboticists AI researchers.
That sounds absolutely fascinating. What do you think are some of the what do you think are some of the crucial ethical and policy questions that will result from a lot of these transformative new technologies, AI in particular?
Well, there's a vast plethora of them. People who read A Dangerous Master are sort of blown away when they realize how many different issues are raised in different fields. So let me focus first on robotics, and then maybe we can talk about synthetic biology or geoengineering or some of the other fields that are coming up. In robotics, you really have everything from societal impact of robots taking more and more jobs, so that's sometimes referred to as technological unemployment, and that's a real question. Are they serving as a downward pressure on job creation and wage growth? Or is this just a temporary phenomenon? We're going to create a lot of new jobs. Many people believe that something different is happening now. And technological unemployment focuses most directly on robotics, but it actually refers to a vast plethora of different things. So people are living longer, retiring later. There are even technologies in motion like rejuvenative medicine that are hoping to get people to break the 120-year barrier on life expectancy and maybe be able to plan on living 150 years. Again, that will be another downward pressure on opening up jobs. So that's one of the big areas that's suddenly getting attention is technological unemployment, a term coined by John Maynard Keynes. Is that actually occurring? Or if not, are we just in a transitional period where that appears to be a fact? So that's one thing in robotics. Another thing in robotics is lethal autonomous weapons. There's a worldwide movement now to ban robots used in warfare that both pick their own targets and dispatch them without immediate human involvement, meaningful human involvement in that decision. And then, of course, there's this breakthrough in artificial intelligence known as deep learning, which is suggesting that problems that have stymied artificial intelligence for 20 years suddenly aren't there anymore. But then that raises concerns about, well, will these learning computers do necessarily what we want them to do? And therefore, the control or the ability to guarantee the safety of artificial intelligence systems is there. A fourth area in artificial intelligence is the movement of drones into domestic airspace and all the societal ramifications of that. Then you have self-driving cars. So that's just one field, artificial intelligence. We could jump to synthetic biology, and there's as big an array of concerns. The two big ones recently are CRISPR-Cas9, which is a new method for editing the genome that makes it much easier than it's ever been before. It's putting really DNA hacking into the hands of graduate students and do-it-yourself biologists. And the question is, will there be so many products that there will be limited oversight and all kinds of new organisms will be released into the environment before one has really done any of the studies about what that impact would be? And that has a branching concern which is known as gene drives. And gene drives refer to the capacity to engineer a new organism, such as a form of locust that does not swarm, or a form of mosquito that does not carry malaria, and speeding up its ability to push out the previous form of that species within just a few generations. And again, when you talk about malaria producing mosquitoes that cause malaria or locusts that swarm, you're talking about getting rid of real nuisances, more than nuisances really. But the difficulty is the same technology might actually lead to the production of all kinds of organisms that could push aside other organisms in ways where actually the damages or harms outweighed the benefits, and where environments got changed in ways we really didn't, ecosystems got changed in ways we didn't necessarily want to have them changed. So
Absolutely.
that's just two quick fields,
Yeah.
you know, and that doesn't
Yeah,
deal with the vast array of
that's
other
just two
emerging
chapters, yeah.
technologies.
So obviously each specific case will have its own answer, but what are some general moral and ethical principles that we can use to address the questions raised by these new technologies and the possibilities that they bring?
Well, one thing is I think we should be very careful about compromising human responsibility for the new technologies that we bring in. That's a particular concern with robots because you may not be able to predict who or what is responsible for a complex system like that many companies, for example, contributed the components, or that the system itself got hacked by users for their own purposes. So I think that's probably the number one principle. We should be very careful about compromising that there is a responsible actor who's potentially culpable and liable for any harm the system might do. And increasingly autonomous systems do threaten that. The other concern I have is unfunded mandates and whether or not the oversight or governance will keep up with the pace of new technologies that are being developed. That's a big area of concern. So just think of a simple thing like drones being introduced in domestic airspace. We've now had one that landed on property that was part of the U.S. Capitol. And that may seem like not such a big concern, except that you wonder whether some future terrorists might use such a technology in a damaging way. But the bigger concern there is it alerted every public official in North America and in Europe that suddenly they had this massive unfunded mandate to ensure privacy and public safety, which could cost them millions of dollars, and yet nobody had really considered that before they pressed to have those drones introduced for whatever purposes, to deliver Amazon packages or to, just find larger markets for the companies that originally designed these drones for military applications.
So would you have any advice for the Canadian government, for policymakers in general, for how to design systems or anything to avoid being so reactive to new technology and hopefully arrive at decisions about some of these important policy questions before the technology is here?
Well, that's particularly what I'm interested in right now, is really anticipatory governance. There's many uncertainties, and we are not going to be able to control, unexpected circumstances, but actually there's an awful lot of intelligence out there that's looking at what can be anticipated. There's other hype that is probably creating problems where they won't really exist if you look at them closely. But Gary Marchant and I, Gary is the director of the Center for Law and Innovation at the Sandra Day O'Connor School of Law at Arizona State University, and he happens to be a Canadian. He and I have proposed something that we call governance coordinating committees. We think that a new form of oversight and coordination is needed for the emerging technologies to bring together the interests of the various stakeholders and to try and be more creative, more flexible, more responsive in the kinds of ways we address those challenges. So really to look only last at regulatory and regulatory oversight or laws and bureaucracies, and to look first at soft governance mechanisms, which include industry policies, insurance policies, professional codes of conduct. So we have come up with this vision of what is needed, but obviously there's a long distance from a general vision to an actual implementation. And we have recommended that pilot projects should be done somewhere, perhaps Canada, perhaps the United States, to explore whether this kind of more comprehensive implementation can be put in place. Canada would be a great place for it just because it's a little smaller, a little bit more manageable than, let's say, the EU or the United States.
I agree completely. So I have only one final question before we wrap up, and that is for our viewers who would like to learn more about your work. Where can we find your books, and where can we find you online?
Well, you can find my book anywhere. You can find my books on Amazon Canada, on Amazon US, at Barnes and Noble. At I don't know what the major chains are here in Canada. If they aren't stocking them, they can get them in a day or two. These Moral Machines and A Dangerous Mass were both written to be accessible to scientifically literate adults and to be fun and informative.
Excellent.
So those are easy to get hold of. My personal website is wendellwallach.com.
Excellent.
And that will give them more information and more ways of accessing me. Meanwhile, I'm in Canada until the end of February at the University of Ottawa.
Excellent, thank you. Well, we'll be sure to include a link to your website in the description of this video online.
Great.
And thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for being a part of the conference.
Thank you.
Thank you,
very
Dr.
much.
Wallach. It's been an absolute pleasure.
My
Thanks.
pleasure.